Hi, my name is Alinda. I'm a transfer student and my first semester here was last fall. I lived on campus and for the year and decided to move off campus just for personal reasons. The first thing I pretty much did was, luckily I had a group of friends that I wanted to room with, but I asked around. That I think actually really helped me a lot. I asked my upperclassmen friends who are living off campus. I approached professors who live in Binghamton and asked them the basic questions, where do you live, how safe do you think it is, and where would you recommend? That was the basic three. And that really helped me out a lot. It could be kind of overwhelming, just automatically going to Craigslist and looking at the housing list. So that was something I did, and then after I spoke to them, I basically did that whole browse, which is really good because then I got to see what the different options are, and the rents and what is included in the different amount of rents, and I even took time to call a few landlords and see what each one had to say, and just through time calling to different people, they told me different things, so I learned pretty much from each landlord what I should ask and all this stuff. So again, the first thing I did was ask around. The second thing I did was look on Craigslist, but then I found out that Binghamton had a housing site that I got my hands on, so I looked at the different options, including the student housing off campus, and then weighed options with that as well. I found that really helpful because, again, I got to see the different options, and then I made phone calls and, of course, talked to my parents. My parents were very concerned about safety, so that's when I decided to look into the police reports and more. This is more so my mother, but she called me one day and said, "Oh, did you know?" and gave me a list from A to Z about where and why and who we should live with and all this stuff. So that also played an important role. I ended up narrowing down my options just by deciding on what area of town I wanted to live in, and then sort of did the whole search again. Yes, so where I would start is asking around upperclassmen, professors, and supervisors, co-workers, all of that. Then take a look at your options and weigh them, and also take a look into security and safety around campus and the city.
Okay, thanks, Alinda. Appreciate that. I guess next we'll have Elise talking about what kinds of questions to ask when you do find that apartment and you go there to see the apartment. What kinds of questions should you keep in mind as you go over there? So take it away, Elise.
All right, so like Alinda said, she started off by asking people questions, and that's one of the most important things that you can do is ask questions, because a lot of these houses aren't new and things could have gone wrong with them, or things have already gone wrong, and it's important to know like what the condition of your house is already, what are conditions of other houses in the neighborhood that are similar, all those kinds of things, because you don't want to go into a house and just look at it and think, wow, this house looks nice, it has a ceiling, it has 4 walls, and it has a floor, it has a kitchen, a bathroom, and a bedroom, that's all I need, perfect, because there are a lot of other things going on in the house that you might not know about. Like, for instance, my house seems to have a bat problem, and that wasn't something that we asked about before moving in, and that's something that might be important to know, like if there are rodents or termites or bats. Another good thing to know was like about plumbing, how new it is, like if there have been issues with it in the past, because if you have a pipe burst in the middle of the night, like I don't know what to do if my basement starts flooding and the toilet stopped working or the shower doesn't work, and so it's important to know that those things are new and taken care of. Another good question to ask is what you're responsible for, because if something breaks in the house, like the stove stops working. That's a really expensive thing to replace, and if you don't know how much that costs or you don't have the money, you want to make sure that you're not responsible for those extra costs when things break. Also, because it snows a lot in Binghamton, because we're in upstate New York, it's important to know who's going to shovel your walkway for you and if someone's going to shovel your driveway. Because if it snows a lot and you don't have a shovel, you have to trudge around in the snow, and you want to be prepared for those types of situations. So those are all good questions to ask. And also, when you're signing the lease, you want to make sure you're asking questions also. It doesn't stop when you're looking at the house. You want to make sure that you're not getting screwed over by your landlord. Like one of the leases we looked at, the landlord had a lot of typos and spelling errors, and he laid out a lot of rules that would have put us at a big disadvantage if something were to go wrong. And that wasn't fair to us, and he asked a lot of us, and so we decided that that wasn't right, and he wasn't willing to budge. So we moved on to another house where the lease was much more flexible and fair, and we added in a few extra things that we thought we needed that were important, like saying that a washing machine was provided and a dishwasher was provided, because if that's not specified in the lease and something goes wrong, then you could be held responsible for it, and those things can add up to be a lot of money. You also want to make sure when you're signing the lease that you don't give away a lot of important information if it's not necessary. For example, when I was signing the lease, they asked for our social security numbers, and I was thinking, I'm signing a lease to rent a house for a year. What could they possibly need my social security number for? And it turns out they didn't really need it, so I decided not to write it down because it was a personal piece of information that wasn't necessary to use. And so those are just some important things to know when you're trying to find a house.